So an engraving is almost the exact opposite of a woodcut. You take a piece of metal, usually copper, and it's beautifully polished so you can see your reflection in it.
And you use tools, which are called burins, and you actually gouge out little slivers of the copper.
Using an enormous amount of manual control, you incise lines across and into the surface of the metal. By varying the amount of pressure, you can change the character of the line that you're actually incising into the metal. So if you press very gently, you get a relatively shallow incised line, and that would in the end print as a fine line in the engraving. But if you use a little more pressure, then the burin goes deeper into the metal, it gouges out a deeper incised line into the surface, and when you print it eventually, that will hold more ink, and you'll end up with a darker, thicker black line.
And you can see here from the pressure of the hand, it's really very difficult to gouge out these deep lines. So with the engravings, you can gouge out a very long, thin piece, or you can take a different kind of instrument and just flick out little tiny bits. If you look here at the top of this engraving, the lines that radiate out from the comet and the flying bat are straight lines. And then here with the dog, you see Dürer has used shorter cuts, shorter little flicks of the engraving tool to describe the hair on the dog.
And imagine trying to make different lines of different thickness by changing the pressure. It's almost impossible to imagine how anybody could really do that. Dürer's really kind of amazing when you see the finished product.
When you've engraved all the lines that you want and you're finished engraving the plate, then you're ready for printing.
You ink the entire surface of the metal, you push ink all over every inch of the surface, and then gradually you begin to wipe the plate clean with a rag, removing the ink from the surface of the metal, but leaving it trapped in the incised lines. So eventually you have a smooth piece of copper which has been cleaned, but ink has been left in the incised lines below the surface of the metal plate. Then you dampen some paper. The paper fibers soak up a little bit of the water and expand a little bit, so you put the paper on top of the plate, you cover the whole thing with some blankets, and then you pass the whole thing between two very heavy rollers. And the paper, the dampened paper, gets pushed into the grooves that you cut into the surface of the metal, and it kisses the ink. And then when you peel the paper off, the ink is transferred from the incised lines to the surface of the paper, and that's how you end up with the engraving.
Now you can put another piece of paper on top of the copper plate and run it through the press again and again and again.
The point about engravings is that they look like drawings, but you can make as many copies of them as you wish. Each time you ink the plate and run it through the press, you get a separate print.